It was a cold but bright morning in New York. The sun's rays shone between the skyscrapers of Manhattan like gold, scattered on a sea of glass. Media vans, cameras, and reporters lined the courthouse. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the high-profile case that had shaken the city's wealthy class. This was not just a divorce or custody case, but a story of honor, betrayal, love, and revenge. When the doors of the court opened, a solemn silence fell between the marble walls and wooden benches. Judge Richard Coleman sat in his chair, looking through the files. In front stood David Harper, a successful businessman, dressed in an expensive black suit, a confident face but a nervous look in his eyes. Next to him stood his lawyer, Sarah Mitchell, known for her sharp tongue and strong arguments. On the other side stood Emily Harper, in a stunning but simple orange and white gown, her hair neatly tied back, dignity on her face, and hidden pain in her eyes. Behind him sat his lawyer, Rebecca Stevens. Everyone in the courtroom knew that David was fighting for custody of his 6-year-old son, Oliver. Rebecca, according to the media, David had argued in court that Emily was mentally unstable, could not raise a child well, and had a dangerous secret in her life. Emily had remained silent until today. She had not spoken to the media, nor had she made any statements on social media. She had just stood in court, silent, strong, and waiting for a big moment. David's voice echoed in the courtroom. "Judge, I am fighting for a better future for my son. Emily betrayed me. She is emotionally unbalanced, and her decisions could be detrimental to Oliver." Emily raised her head for the first time. There were no tears in her eyes, but a strange calm, as if she knew that the real storm was yet to come. Sitting on the back bench was Mark Evans, a young man, plainly dressed, a look of surprise and worry on his face. His name had not yet been mentioned in court, but his presence was an important part of the story. The judge looked at Emily. "Do you have something to say?" Emily took a deep breath. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm just a mother, and I want to get the truth out for my child." Silence fell in the courtroom. Emily opened her file and pulled out an envelope. "David says, I'm unstable. But the truth is, he's been in a relationship with another woman for the past 8 months." David's face flushed. "That's a lie." Emily's voice remained firm. "This woman's name is Sophia Lane." A beautiful woman in a gold dress sitting behind him was startled. It was Sophia, whom the media had often seen with David at business events. She lowered her eyes. Emily said the next sentence, and the whole room seemed to forget to breathe. "And Sophia is pregnant." There was a commotion in the courtroom. The pens in the reporters' hands began to tremble. David's lawyer immediately objected, but the judge ordered silence. Emily held the papers out to the judge. "These are medical reports, and this is the DNA test request I filed. David wants custody of my son, but he's going to be the father of a new child himself, and he hid that fact from me." David's eyes were both angry and afraid. "Emily, why are you doing all this?" Emily looked him in the eye for the first time. "Because you broke up my family, and now you want to take my son away from me." Sophia suddenly stood up. Her voice was shaking. David, you said you were divorced. You said it was over. David was silent. Mark, who was sitting in the back, sat up, holding his head. He was Sophia's brother, and he couldn't believe the quagmire his sister had gotten herself into. The judge said sternly, "Mr. Harper, is this true?" David said hesitantly, This is a personal matter." The judge slammed his hand on the table. When it comes to custody of a child, nothing is personal. Emily's heart ached for years. She remembered the day she'd overheard David whispering to someone else on the phone. The night she cried with Oliver to her chest. The moment she'd decided not to break down, but to reveal the truth. The court proceedings were postponed. The media was standing outside. Everyone wanted Emily's statement, but she quietly got into her car and drove away. There was both fear and strength in her heart. When he reached home, he took Oliver in his arms. The little boy was looking at him with innocent eyes. "Mommy, will Daddy leave us?" Emily's heart was pricked, but she smiled and said, "No, son, I am always with you." On the other hand, David was sitting in his penthouse apartment. Sophia was standing in front of him, tears in her eyes. "Why did you lie to me?" David rubbed his forehead. "I wanted to make everything right. What's wrong?" "One lie after another," Sophia shouted. Mark took his sister's hand. "We're leaving here. You're not staying with this man." Sophia put her hand on her stomach. "I'm not alone." Everything was getting out of hand for David. His business, his reputation, his son, and now Sophia too. A few days later, the hearing was held again. This time, the courtroom was even more crowded than before. Emily looked calm, but inside, she was praying for justice. Rebecca Stevens argued that a man who lies to his wife, cheats on another woman, and tries to avoid responsibility for a new child cannot guarantee the best interests of a child. David's lawyer called it a mistake, but the truth carried more weight in court. Sophia was called to testify. There were tears in her eyes. "I didn't know David was still legally married. He said it was over." I believed him. Emily saw him. There was no hatred in her heart, only sympathy. She knew who the real culprit was. The judge concluded the hearing and said that the final decision would be announced next week. It was a long week for everyone. The media kept speculating. The business partners began to distance themselves from David. Sophia moved into her brother's house. Emily spent time with her son, cherishing every moment. There was complete silence in the courtroom on the day of the verdict. The judge closed the file and said, "Considering the best interests of the child, the court decides that full custody of Oliver is awarded to his mother, Emily Harper. Mr. Millie Harper will be allowed limited visitation, provided he completes family counseling." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. She bowed her head and thanked him. David sat in the chair, feeling like he had lost everything. But the story didn't end there. A few weeks later, Emily received a letter. It was from Sophia. It said she was leaving town, wanted a fresh start, and would raise the child with the truth. She also apologized to Emily, even though it wasn't her fault. Emily closed the letter and looked out the window. The same glittering buildings of New York were there, but today everything seemed different to her. She had thought herself weak, but she turned out to be strong. Several months passed. David began counseling. tried to see his son. He wanted to change, but the shadows of the past do not easily leave him. One day, Oliver asked, "Mama, can people make mistakes and change?" Emily smiled and said, "Yes, son, if they really want to change." At that moment, there was a knock on the door. David stood there, more serious than ever, regret in his eyes. He told Emily, "I lost everything to understand what really matters. I want to be a better person for my son." Emily looked at him. There was no longer any anger in her heart, only a lesson. Emily, a lesson. This path will not be easy, David. But if you truly want to change, time will prove it. Life went on. Sophia started a new life in California, gave birth to a daughter. She named her Hope. Hope. Mark stood by her, like a brother, like a protector. Emily resumed her career, speaking out for women's rights. She learned that silence is sometimes not weakness, but waiting for the right time. And David, he began to understand, by spending time with his son at every meeting, that being a father is not just a name, but a responsibility. That Manhattan courthouse still stands today, but the echoes of that day will perhaps live on forever. The silent power of a woman, the mistake of a man, the future of an innocent child, and the truth that changed everything. The main lesson of the story was that no matter how hard you try to hide the truth, one day it will come out and reveal itself. Love without respect is just desire, and family without trust is just a show. But when a woman stands up for her child, she becomes stronger than a mountain.